All right, baby. What's going on? Happy, I don't know what it is, Wednesday? It's got to be Wednesday.
Wednesday, I think. I don't know.
Yeah, Wednesday. Hey, I'm excited, man. We got Matt Kelderman here today from the beautiful, I don't even know if it's beautiful and gorgeous. I've never, I've been to Dallas one time and it was to buy a car. I bought the car. I showed up that morning. I bought the car and I left and I drove to Maryland. It's the only experience I've ever had in Dallas. Is that a real Dallas experience?
It's a really long drive.
It was this is when I was military, man.
It's like 70 degrees 2 days ago. It's legitimately sleeting here right now. It's ridiculous.
Oh, you can keep that, buddy. I was just talking to a friend in Colorado this morning, and she was like, "It's 3." And I'm like, 3? I'm thinking like Wednesday. What? I don't get what you're talking. She's like 3 degrees. I'm like, that's crazy, man. It was 79 here at 8 a.m.
That's why I ran from Iowa. I was like, this is just too cold up here. I got to get out of Dodge.
Is that where you're from?
Well, I mean, half and half. Like, I've been in Texas longer now, but wasn't born here, so I'm not allowed to claim Texas. But yeah.
I get it. Yeah.
I did middle school, high school, and college in Iowa, though.
Cool, man. Maybe that's why we jive so well. I'm a Minnesota boy.
Exactly.
That's cool. So, hey, a little background on us, right? Our connection is, I don't even know. I want you to fill this in when I get done here. But somehow you knew Margaret Service, and Margaret Service works at Edina Realty she's out of like the Cold Spring office, I think, up in Minnesota, right? With Edina Realty. Well, I worked at Edina Realty in St. Cloud, which they're like neighboring cities, right? They're 20, 30 minutes away. So I don't think I ever did a deal with Margaret, but she'd come into the office once a week for sales meetings. And then whenever we had like, hey, everybody's going to hop on a bus and go to a fight, or we're going to go to a party, or whatever it was like all the 20, 30-year-old agents are like, oh, we're going to go drink and have fun. And then Margaret would show up and actually show us how to drink and have fun. She was wild, man.
It's crazy. So like I am part of a large expansion team inside Keller Williams. We're the Dallas arm of that one, right?
Yeah.
And our recruiting at the time, she's grown into another role now, and so I don't want to mangle it. But Carrie Heibel Briner, is like knows Margaret, so she introduced us, and then Margaret saw my energy. She's like, "Hey, I know this guy Joe." She turned me on your show, and I watched it. And I was like, "Holy s, look at this freaking guy!" And so I started following you on everything, and then, dude, that's probably a year ago, and here we are.
And now it's love. That's right. Exactly. I think what's her name, Carrie?
Yeah,
I think that's her niece.
It's her niece or goddaughter or something. There's some kind of like kinship there. I don't know.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's really cool. So then I know you through Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, and we're going to talk about your podcast in a little bit, but it's kind of a social media relationship, right? That's about it. And I get invited by a couple friends to go down to Key West and do a mastermind, whatever the hell that means. So it's really everybody on the planet smarter than me talking about things that are way above my head, getting me to become a little bit of an above average agent, right? And it was just amazing, man. Amazing thoughts, amazing brains, amazing ideas. And I ran into this giant oak tree of a man. Now, listen, I'm a big guy, man. I'm 6 foot, 250. I was in the Army. I'm a big dude. But this dude made me look like a bird. And I was like, who is that Hulk of a man? And it was Nick Good, your buddy Nick.
Yeah.
And we sent you a video that night, didn't we?
Yeah, you guys sent me a video that night, and it was crazy because like I told Nick, he's like, Nick gets to do all the fun stuff now because he's like busted his butt in real estate for so long. He's just to break off and like, I'm gonna go to Florida just to hang out with other smart people about real estate, right?
And Joe,
but, dude, he's gotten huge. I met Nick, the whole reason, and I bring up the brand only because it's where I'm at right now, but I think brokerage is way beyond brands. The reason I joined the brokerage I'm with right now, Nick Good's 33% of that. There were 3 people that I decided to join that broker that helped me decide to join that brokerage.
Yeah.
And it was more that office than the brokerage, honestly. And Nick was one of those people. So for 4 years, he's been a huge part. Now I get to do business with him. And yeah, he's a tank.
We instantly, because he didn't know who I was. I had a relationship with you, but he had no clue who I was. So I started talking to him, but I tell you what, man, instantly, I bet we chatted for a half an hour. And awesome, he was teasing me because I had an iPhone SE. And he's like, dude, you've got videos all over the place. I know you do. Matt shows them to me. What are you doing with an SE? And I'm like, I don't know, man. Like I said, I'm an average realtor. So
he's the best when it comes to like implementing stuff. Like, it's funny. We have this, we're trying to figure out the photography side of like something in our business right now. We'll get into it a little bit, but it's like, we went to Nick and he was like, well, I got a photographer on staff. Like, he's just got all this, like he implements so much faster than everybody else. He's always just knows the next thing that's going on.
You can tell too, when you talk to him, that you instantly trust him. I mean, I don't mean just trust, but like that if you ask him to do something professionally, it's done. It's going to happen. He's got one of those personalities,
He's a true friend. I mean, he's somebody, we just don't do the podcast together. Like, we're going on vacation together at the end of the month. Like, he's one of those people that like legitimately is influential in not just my wealth building, but also just how I grow as a parent and a father and all that stuff. He's an awesome guy.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me, like, give me the background on you. Now I know you're from Iowa. I know you moved down to Texas. You're selling real estate. How long you been doing it? Tell me about the team. Like, give me the background here.
Yeah, man. I got licensed early 2013. I was a bartender for 16 years.
Yeah.
I started bartending right out of right out of high school, honestly. Started in Applebee's in Marshalltown, Iowa, and started just kind of working my way through that and ended up at a restaurant called Houston's or Hillstone here locally in Dallas for the last decade I bartended. Got my real estate license, did a couple of deals, mostly a buddy who had some cash and was buying a bunch of stuff. So it really weren't really hard transactions.
Yeah.
Went on vacation in 2013 and came back. And this guy's like, hey, we move like 100 units a year, 150 units a year. You want to be our assistant? I was like, sure. So I quit the restaurant gig and went full-time as their assistant. That lasted like 9 months because being an assistant to a disorganized team is a nightmare. But I learned a lot, went on my own for a little bit, tried to start the team, flunked at that twice, then finally found some partners and just people to help in that journey. And, we pended 21 units in January. So totally different now than it was 6 years ago. Yeah.
That's impressive, man. That's awesome. That's awesome. So now tell me how long your podcast has been going. Where did that stem from?
So I like our podcast is a little bit off the rails. So first off, it's called The Only Real Estate Podcast.
It's awesome.
Which is like absolutely not the truth. There's tons of badass ones. I'm on one right now, right? There's plenty to listen to. I think it's a perfect kind of mix of me, Nick, and Brian. Nick's really serious. I'm completely relational, and Brian's kind of in between the two of us. So we had some really good conversations. We had a buddy who was setting up like a podcast setup in his garage, and he's like, hey, you guys want to come over and shoot? And we went over and had a couple of beers, and we sat there and chopped it up for a little bit. I think we shot like 3 episodes in there. He was great, but he wasn't serious enough about it. You can actually go back, and it's like one of the first few episodes. There's like one of those lower thirds that runs across the bottom that gives you information, and it just says enter text here, right? It was kind of at that point, like we were like, okay, if we're gonna do this, we need to get a little bit more serious, and like consistency is the hardest thing about any of this type of stuff, right? And then we started doing Be Live like this for a while. We probably did 5-10 episodes on Be Live. The last one, Nick and Brian were out of town, and I had some audio issues, and we're like, we got to get serious about it. So January of last year, we moved it into a studio, started investing real money in it.
Great studio.
Brought on somebody to chop up all the content, just all that stuff that you need to do when you're essentially producing an hour-long show every week that can then be chopped up into like 20 pieces. So we started getting really serious about the guests, and we've been fortunate enough to have like the CEO of Lion Desk on. I mean, we had Wayne Salmons, who's a local coach here. Now we kind of get an opportunity to have some people on. We got a little Facebook group that goes really well. So, and honestly, man, it's just 3 knuckleheads who are grinding at real estate. Like, I don't think any of us are like super crazy qualified, other than we haven't flunked out of real estate,
Yeah. Honestly, though, and this kind of leads into my next question. It's the guys who are doing it, who are grinding every single day, that you want to hear from, because the mistakes you're making are the mistakes I don't want to make. And whatever you're succeeding at, I don't want to take 3 years like it took you. I want to take 3 months, So, and that's kind of the purpose behind my whole show, at least the lives on my show, is giving real estate agents a leg up, a benefit, to see what other people are succeeding at. I got to get my thumb in the picture here, and what they're failing at, so they can skip right over that, right? So with your podcast, what has that done for you guys, if anything, for your business, for your brand?
It's done a ton. So like, here's what I think it helps with. One, it gives you content for social media, right? Like, honestly, as a real estate agent, you're going to hear this all over the place. But if you're not doing some kind of video content, and we're not even talking about highly produced stuff, right?
No.
Like, you can, one of the first webinars we ever did as a group, and this was after we were producing stuff, man, it was supposed to start at like 6, and at 5:59, we're still trying to figure out the cameras, right? Like, understand that no matter how big somebody's business is, it is absolute disaster behind the scenes. They do not have it together as much as they look like they do, right? And I think that's what we really embrace with the podcast. So what we do with where the content I think has really helped Brian and I think Nick too, is it's notoriety, right? Like not notoriety like people know who we are, because it doesn't have much of a reach outside of a couple of degrees of Kevin Bacon. Yeah. But I think what it does is it allows you to interact with people and get firsthand knowledge. And we have people on the show, and guess what? We get to ask the questions we want to ask. Yeah. Right? Like you get to get really specific knowledge. And then there's conversations that happen off camera. Then there's, hey, who do you know that might want to be on the show? And then you get connected throughout this whole web of people. And I think what it's really allowed us to do is get a bit of a foothold in people's lives, and we don't have to go meet them, right? They kind of know who we are. They kind of recognize us from something. It's just made those introductions a lot easier, like all video does. We use it with clients in our database too, man. Video helps a ton.
I can't tell you, just for me personally, locally, there's so many people that I meet with, do coffee with, lunch with. I've never met them before. And I have instant rapport because they've seen 3,000 of my videos of me just being an idiot around town. And it just I think people, I know agents, all they want to do is put up this perfectly edited, this is my new listing, this is my open house. And it's like, number one, nobody cares about your new listing. If they did, they'll find it in the MLS. And number two, man, your whole goal, it's the long game. You got to sell your personality. And like I said, that's what you're trying to build, is when you get to coffee, they already feel comfortable with you.
100%. And I think one of the places where agents make mistakes is their social media becomes a commercial for their business, or there's nothing at all, right? Like you've never turned on ABC and watched 100% commercials. It's about 1 minute of commercials for every 4 minutes of television you get, right? And you need to take that same principle. Go on Instagram right now and scroll. I bet you'll see an ad every fifth or sixth picture, right? It's a very, very systematic thing. And I think what a lot of agents miss in this, and you talk about some of that Lily White content, I cuss a lot. You won't find much cussing on my Facebook until you watch Brian and I's taco videos, and then we at least beep it out, right? But the taco videos are off the rails. We eat tacos, we drink margaritas. We really don't talk about tacos. We talk about whatever nonsense is going on. Yeah. We edited it down to 5 minutes, and people tag us with a taco emoji after our names, right? It's not really what you're doing, it's being consistent in whatever you're doing, right? Yeah. And if you're doing Mortgage Mondays or Tech Tip Tuesdays or whatever this stuff is, real estate agents, that's fine, but it better be interspersed with some other stuff. And I think what you and I do is I invite people into my life. I'm 100% genuine in everything I put out there, but I'm intentional about showing it to people, right? Yeah. My kid's a huge part of my life. I love being a dad. It's honestly the greatest thing about me, I think.
I love your kid, man. He's a badass.
He's awesome, man. He's totally cool. And but the weird part about that too is I'll bring him in the office and people will talk to him and want to get to know him. And he's actually the shyest kid you've ever met.
Who the hell are you?
He hides behind my leg. And I'm like, everybody else thinks you're this Luke who lives on social media. And they don't realize that he's not really that kid,
Yeah, that's awesome.
So it's cool.
So how did you meet Brian and Nick?
So Nick was pretty influential in getting me over to the brokerage. I met him almost day one when I was at one of these national real estate agent events.
And he was at Keller.
Yeah. We was at family reunion in New Orleans, like 2016.
Yeah. Where were you at that time?
I was with this small little boutique brokerage here locally.
Okay.
That when I'd spun off, I was like honestly, like I'll be very candid. I was like every dumb new agent. I cared about my splits and that was it. Yep. But I was getting nothing else, right?
Yep.
So 2015. Yeah, man, 2015. I was my breakout year. I did a lot with internet leads early on because I was a bartender. I had no sphere of influence. Yep. I love my bartender and restaurant peeps, but they're not usually the best candidates to go purchase a home. Yeah. So I didn't really have much of a sphere of influence. So I paid for, 2014 and 15 realtor.com leads were still relatively affordable in our market. And the market wasn't saturated with those types of leads. And I murdered it with them and ended up closing a couple of monster deals that got me noticed a little bit. What people didn't realize that was like 75% of my production. Transactions. But so I started getting recruited a little bit. I got invited to family reunion, went kind of hit it off with some people. And then that's how I met Nick. Brian came in way later. I knew who he was as a listing agent. And Brian and I were actually doing the podcast together before we even talked about being business partners. I was flunking as a CEO. I'm a really high eye on the disc chart. I love people. I love relationships. I'm not the greatest organizer and motivator of men.
Yeah.
So it's like I was just failing in the stuff that I wanted to do at real estate. Brian didn't want to do.
Yep. Perfect.
Brian's probably one of the best automators, not just for us, but I mean, his ability to set up systems and workflows and automated text message campaigns and geographic targeting, it's just off the charts, man. So he tees up so many opportunities for me, and then I go close them, right? And we just figure out a way to make it work.
Dude, you and I are so similar. And when you talk to him, you can see that's exactly how he thinks. I mean, I would have guessed that, absolutely. Man, that's really interesting. So again, going back to the purpose of this whole podcast, it's to give to realtors and make them better, right? Give them something. So let's talk about some prospecting over the years. Give me something first that has worked for you that other people might be interested in doing, and then give me something that just did not work at all for you.
So I'll tell you something that's worked over the years, but I don't want to make it sound like it's something that an agent could pick up tomorrow, because I think there's actually three things in what you're asking. The long-term game of internet leads has been great for me. I'm good at nurturing leads over very long periods of time, right? It's my relational style. It just, taking really good notes in the database, not CRM hopping, right? Yep. Staying in one database for a long time, so you've got that history of notes, helps me go back and connect with people really easily. So I would say now one of my larger sources of business is just long-term nurtures of some people, right? I was terrible at expireds for the longest time because I'm not the most scripted agent. I stay very nimble inside conversations, but I fumble in conversations. I lose appointments sometimes because I don't ask great qualifying questions. But the same things that kind of hold me back because of the way I approach business also allows me to connect with other people really, really deeply, right? So do I waste sometimes? Sometimes I do. But for the most part, expireds have always been, I would say since about the fourth year in the business, expireds have been a big part of what I do to prospect, because now I just know how to talk to them.
Yeah.
Right? I've just done enough deals that there's not many objections that I'm scared of, because I honestly kind of know the answer to most of them. Whether they agree with me or not is a completely different story, but I understand what they're trying to get. At the end of the day, most expireds are just mad about communication and marketing. So if you can cover those two, you're going to cover 90% of the issues that they had in the first place. I think those are the two things that have been the most for me. And now my sphere and my agent referrals, I absolutely just crush it with agent referrals now. But that took me a couple of years to build up. The stuff that I had the most quick success with early in my career was just kind of the organic connection. Like everything's a lead generation opportunity for me, because for me, lead generation, the only thing I have mastered is conversation. I stood behind a bar for 10,000 hours. So the networking part of real estate comes easy to me. Everything else is really difficult, honestly. So I just am very intentional about staying in relationship with people. I invite them on my Facebook. Those types of things have always worked really, really well for me. The stuff that I've just gotten mauled on, man, I have listed 2 FSBOs in my career, and they have both been a complete disaster. Overpriced, commission discounts, never sold them. I have never been able to figure out the long game of FSBOs or that straight killer mentality of FSBOs. Those have always absolutely just murdered me. Yeah. Right? Like I just can't get anywhere. And to this day, honestly, they still make me nervous. Yes. Like I don't approach them at all.
Yep.
And now I don't have to, fortunately.
Yeah.
It's not a piece of business that I've ever been able to convert at all.
This is so, like, I am the same way. Now down here, and I'll get into what's worked for me and what hasn't in a little bit, but when I was in Minnesota, I bet I was probably a 70-30 listing agent, maybe even 80-20 listing agent. And it was because of my prospecting. I went after expireds just hard. And I could get the expireds just like you, but the FSBOs, I don't know how many FSBOs I ever even listed, but I just remember thinking, man, I am horrible at these. Expireds came so easy. And honestly, if you don't get an expired, you usually know about it within a couple days. And
the aggressive nature of the expireds is what ultimately attracted me to that. But again, it wasn't early in my career. It wasn't until I felt comfortable that I had the answers before I really went after them. The FSBOs, the problem is, on the surface, they all present as an opportunity. And I've never been able really, because look, whether you're going hardcore and trying to set the listing appointment day one on the market, or you're doing hey, I may have we have a database of 20,000 buyers, I'd like to see if it matches any of them, or you just do the straight up lie, like I have a buyer. Either way, most of the time you're going to be able to get in the door, right? Yep. It almost presents as like this false opportunity that you have to nurture over time. And while I like nurturing some types of leads, I just despise nurturing FSBOs.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Yes. So
I've never been good at that.
I do want to get to what works for me, but you brought up a story the other day. I don't remember where I saw it, maybe Instagram, where you went out to a potential listing. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Absolutely.
Let me hear it. I want you to share that.
So we go out, right? Like, so part of the automation that we have is we call and text expireds, right?
Yeah.
And we hit them in different ways, obviously being very, very cognizant of how much trouble you can get in if you start texting people you're not supposed to be texting, right? So we make sure, so we don't text as many of them.
Yeah.
But this guy actually responded to a text flow that had been going out, and it was day one, so it was the first text, right? And then he hits me back up like a couple of weeks later. I had some follow-up set, and I'd sent him off some other random text messages. And this goes strictly back to me not asking good qualifying questions.
Yeah.
He essentially, I can't remember the wording of it. I don't have it in front of me, but I said in that video, he was like, I'd love for you to come by and check out the home, right? And his wording was very important because there was nothing that he actually said that indicated he was looking for a listing agent.
Yes.
And I pull it up and I look at the price point, and it's like $1.2 million. And I'm, I've been blessed to do some luxury, so I don't totally get blown away by that. But I'm like, hey, that's obviously, I'd rather have luxury buyers than luxury listings, honestly. Yep. But I'll take a luxury listing if one opportunity presents itself.
Sure.
So it's about an hour away, which I'll drive to. So there's another agent on our team. Part of being like the lead agent, you take agents on appointments and show them how to do stuff. So I invite her, and so she drives. She's got kids, so she drives over there. No, bro, I'm not kidding. I pull up and realize the mess I've got myself in. There's other agents kind of funneling in and out of the door, and it looks like an open house. Like, the real estate agent, what an open house looks like. And so I sit in the car for a couple of minutes, and I'm like, damn it. So it's like, all right, we're going inside. And I go in, and this guy's standing by the front door, greeting real estate agents with the biggest smile on his face, presenting the home to me. He just ran a broker open off the backs of all these agents who called him when he expired. He saved all their numbers and just text them all. And like I said in my video, as frustrating as it was, I was there because I didn't ask the right questions. I'll tell you right now, Nick Good wouldn't have been there because he's got a pre-qualifying question that I'll have to go back in that thread and find at some point, and I'll repost it somewhere. But that would have kept me from going on that appointment, right? Yeah. So he just used the leverage he had, and I wasted about 2.5 hours of my day, which, my time's not like, I don't have that kind of $10,000 an hour mentality, but I've got better things to do with my time than go on a bogus appointment for 2.5 hours, right?
Yeah. Man.
So I still do stuff like that, man. I'll still chase my tail every once in a while in real estate. And it frustrates me when I do it, but I've closed business because I've chased it like that too. So I just don't know where to cut it off.
I'm a bigger fan of going after stuff and failing than trying to determine if this is worth my time and if that's worth my time. I think people get themselves out of so many opportunities because they just think too much. Just quit letting your brain get in the way and just do,
The brokerage just trains you to go after. Look, I understand it from a mass training standpoint, right? You can't. The thing about shortcuts is you have to learn them, right? You can't teach somebody the shortcut because then they don't know when to enact the shortcut, and they use it at the wrong time, and then they shortcut the shortcut, and now you're only 60% of what you should be doing, and now you're really screwed, right?
Yeah.
So you can't teach people the shortcut, but I do think over the years I've gotten better through losing at determining what is good risk and what's bad risk. And that's the hardest thing to teach agents is like, now I just like some business just looks ugly and I'm like, I'm gonna stay away from others. Like I'm willing to risk 2 hours of my day to take a flyer on that.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, I mean, anybody who watches me knows what I do. I use RedX, I cold call, and my goal is to hit 65 a day because I'm trying to hit 20,000 a year this year. Dude, I was crushing it. And now I'm getting so busy that I'm falling behind. And I feel the pressure. So now I'm getting into the mindset of I can't think 65 a day anymore. I need to think 200 a day because I know some days I just can't do it. Like I'm busier than hell, which is an awesome problem. I love this problem. But I think when you get so busy, what a lot of people do is when they have a day where there's nothing going on, they just kind of chill. They watch Netflix, they go to the bar, they have an extended lunch. And like, you got to keep going on those days or you're going to have that, famous real estate roller coaster. So I've been doing that's it. Just geo leads off of RedX. And I've been, if I get the appointment, great. If I don't get the appointment, I get the email and I pump that into Constant Contact. Constant Contact is hooked up to my website. that's been it. And it's been crushing it for me, man.
I think where systems really come into play, at least for me, where I used to lose before and I win now, more because of my business partnership. Now it's not anything that I'm doing differently. I've just partnered with people who are better at it than I ever was. It's the follow-up, man. Like the generating the lead is the part that feels super sexy. It just doesn't, it's not really where the gold is. Over time, all that hard work is in the follow-up, and being able to automate that through text messages and emails and then phone call reminders, I think is really the only way to stay on top of a big business, you know. And I like Ricky Caruth. I don't know how he closes the level of business he does, but it's got to be through leverage, because there's just no way. I will tell you, my busiest year ever was as a real estate agent was 2017. I closed 36 transactions that year and was underwater the whole time. Right. And here's the thing is, we get trained, just go close 3 transactions a month. First off, that's not easy. Right. No. We make it seem like 36 transactions a year will put you in like the top 10% in the country. That's like no joke production. Right. So like, I think we just make it seem easier than it is. And then we don't prepare people for some of the obvious stuff they're going to run into with leverage issues and doing the hard work up front. And then the follow-up game really is where so much of that gold is too.
Yeah. I get asked all the time about my conversion rates with RedX. And honestly, my appointment rates are really low.
Sure.
But if I throw them out, like the amount of people who say, yes, come list my house and make a commission is so low. But the people who I actually get business from start with, I'm not interested. Why are you calling me? And then it leads into a conversation. And then I get an email, and then they call me 3 months later. And hey, maybe I'll think about this. Can I get a market analysis? So it's just, you're absolutely right, man. You hit the nail on the head. It's follow up. And if you're not,
I think it's important. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, if you're not following up consistently, you're going to get killed.
I think one of the hardest things for agents to realize is that this idea that there's some replicatable, like, I don't know if that's a word, system that you can just all of a sudden you can plug in and then just ride it. Like, that just fundamentally does not exist. Here's the really cool thing that does exist that you will get to experience. Through kind of tripping and falling, you get to add layers to your system that make it better. Like right now, Brian and I are in the process of adding BombBomb video to our follow-up, right? And it's something that seems really easy, but it's not super easy to work into the workflow. It's not the way the leads come in. Do we need to have them about a specific listing, right? There's all these things that you get to experience. Man, our expired text campaign, I don't know how many phone numbers we killed trying to work that out. Like AT&T legitimately shut down a phone number nationwide. It's like it was getting flagged as spam too much. So like nobody's doing it perfectly. We're breaking stuff and tweaking stuff all the time. And I just feel like as real estate agents, unfortunately, we get sold this idea that there's some kind of quick shortcut, and it's really just a mess of wires that I couldn't tell you how we figured out how to do it. Right.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit more about your BombBomb deal. What are you guys doing exactly?
So we're really fortunate in our office to actually have BombBomb as part of our tech package, which is pretty cool. And that's neither here nor there, because BombBomb's not dramatically expensive, so you could replicate this pretty easy. But essentially what we want to do and what we're trying to figure out how to do is we're taking like a 3-part series whenever we take a listing, right? So let's say the agent records like a selfie style video, like from the front of the house. Right? Almost like you would if you're doing Facebook Live. And then you maybe do another one on one of the key features of the home, maybe whatever the most badass room in the house is. And then you do a third one. So you record all of those while our listing coordinator is there putting signs, doing measurements. All of that happens in the prep part of the listing. Then when a lead comes in for that specific listing, because Brian does all this targeting, right? Most of the ads we run are off our own listings. And don't ask me to explain how Brian runs all the ads, because I truly don't know. But he does them where essentially he's running them off our own listings. So then that lead comes in. It kicks off an automation that I think starts with MailChimp that triggers BombBomb. But then over like a 10-day span, they get that 3-part video series about the house. Right. So it's interspersed with what we're already doing when they come into Boomtown, which is our CRM, and they're getting hit with our version of a 10 days of pain. Then in that same 10 days, MailChimp is sending them, because they came off a specific listing, videos about that, right? So the Boomtown lead goes round robin to the team, right? The BombBomb video lead, because it's the agent's face talking about it, that one specifically goes directly to the agent. So, and it's just a way for us to, because we have 20 agents on the team now too. Well, not 20. We probably have 12 really active agents on the team. And we just, that's how we parse the leads out. For instance, we used to have the agent's phone number on the signs. We've just moved that to a call rail number. because we were losing too many sign calls. I was carrying 9 listings at one time. I'm not answering my phone as much as I need to be for 9 listings worth of phone calls or sign calls, right? And honestly, I don't want sign calls anymore.
Yes.
That's juice for the team. Send that out to the new agents. Let them go convert sign calls, right?
Interesting.
So it's different. And like I said, Brian and I are figuring stuff out and breaking stuff all the time when it comes to those types of things, or noticing like the sign call thing was just a huge gap, man. We had 15 listings on the market and we're like, we haven't converted a sign call in like 6 months. And we're like, how can we be more efficient with that?
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So going into some of the things that didn't work, I was going to share something that hasn't worked for me and the why, but I want to talk a little bit about my market because I want to get into your market here for a little bit. When I sold up in Minnesota, I sold for 5-6 years and with Margaret. And in that market, almost everybody was either doing an FHA loan or a conventional with 20% down. I think, when I was up there, I'm guessing I did 250 deals. And I bet I can only remember one deal ever where it was all cash. And it was a 20-some-year-old Asian kid who just had, he had loads of cash. Yep. And that was it. Everybody else had a loan. And every transaction was pretty similar. They were all present. Out of all those transactions, I probably had 5-10 people that didn't go to closing. Otherwise, everybody went to closing. So now I come down to Florida. Experienced agent. I'm confident. I'm ready to roll. And it is so different, man. I think I'm just guessing 80% of my clients are not from Florida, and they're not at the closing. They're not at the inspection. Probably 25% of my clients are not even at the showings. I'm just FaceTiming them or I'm taking videos. And so I've really had to I had this whole plan, man. And then I got here and I'm like, dude, my plan is jacked up. I need a new plan. But it's so interesting. So here's the thing that didn't work for me that killed it for me in Minnesota. I picked a farm. It was about 1,000 homes. And I send them mailings every single month. And then on top of that mailing, I'm calling them. So they're getting that also. On top of that, I'm door knocking. So they're getting so many. And then on top of that, twice a year, I'm sending them a handwritten blue ink in an envelope that's in blue ink. I'm not doing it. My wife's doing it. Sending of course. Yeah. Sending them to all these people, right? So they're getting hit a million times, a bunch of different ways. Well, here's what I didn't think. As soon as I got down here, all the nicer neighborhoods here are gated. You're not allowed to knock. I'm like, dude, what's a gated community? I've never seen it. There's no gated communities, and I can't say that word on here, but out in the middle of nowhere, Minnesota.
Sure.
So I'm like, dude, okay, there's a problem. No more door knocking. And the cold calling was easy, but I would call these people. I think I called all 1,000 of them. I got one appointment. And almost all of them, when I picked up, they'd say, listen, honey, I'm going to die in this house. Leave me alone. And they're just angry New Yorkers, right? And I'm like, dude, I get, because it's a 55 plus community, which that was another problem, right? I had a 55 plus community and they're going to die there. So all that marketing I'm doing, the kids who are going to end up selling it have no clue who I am.
Never even see it.
No, all those phone calls, all those door knocks, all that relationship building was worthless. It's not worthless, but it got me nothing. And I kept thinking, why is this not doing anything for me? It used to, once a month, twice a month, you get something out of it. It's at least at first. And I got nothing out of it. So you really got to reverse engineer. I just went to what worked for me, did it again. And I wasn't really thinking through the fact that I was in a different market. So taking that long ass story, in your market, what sets you guys apart? What's different, do you think, than any other market around the nation?
Well, DFW I feel like it's a bit unique with nothing to compare it to. Understand this is just kind of we have a lot of people moving here. I think our market is attractive. DFW International Airport makes businesses relocating here very, very easy. As specific state, because here's what a lot of people mistake, specifically DFW. Though they're coming from what used to be a more conservative area that is maybe a bit more liberal now, and they think they're coming to a more conservative thing. Well, first off, Dallas County votes blue every year, right?
Yeah.
Or every couple of years, right? So we get it. We get a lot of people moving here, not for the same reasons as you get them in Florida. So we deal with a little bit of the same challenges. FaceTiming people for showings, stuff like that. what we get here locally that drives our market a lot more is public schools. Our public schools after elementary school, and even in some school districts, elementary school are not really that great. So people sometimes will move inside neighborhoods and just upgrade inside a specific neighborhood to a larger house, right? Or people will move into a house that's a bit more beat up in a neighborhood than they maybe would in other markets because of the schools. And DFW is really a post-World War II town anyways. Most of our construction's from the 50s and 60s. Then we have that explosion in the 70s and 80s as interest rates got high. We got a lot of multifamily stuff built during those times. And then, a lot of the plain Jane stuff from the 90s until like 2007. Then as construction started to change in 2007. Now we've got a buttload of new construction because we're blowing up and we have the space to expand. So what we're really experiencing right here, like now, is pockets of insanity, right? So like there'll be some markets that are totally saturated and dead, and you'll go 5 miles away and that area is super hot because it's centrally located. We don't have great topography here. There's no water, there's no mountains, there's not billions of trees. It's just, if you've ever been to Atlanta, it's somewhat similar, right? Like it's just not, it's a cool place when you live here and you find all the places, but on the surface it's buildings and it's just a city, right? So people move inside certain pockets a lot. I will tell you, when I got in 2013, it was so smoking hot. I've never experienced a down market, but we're certainly in the leveling off phase, right? Sellers can't demand as much as they used to. Buyers have more leverage. Interest rates are lower. And it's caused, I think what it's done is it's made experience go a lot further. I'm still up against really great agents all the time for listings and buyers, but it's just, I think we're seeing a thinning of the herd when it comes to real estate agents in our market, which very candidly, I welcome that.
Yeah. Let me throw this out there. I've said this a million times. I wish the annual fee to keep your license was 10 G's. Would you pay 10?
Why?
I'll pay 10.
I would.
Yeah.
Here's the things I would now. I would have, but I very, very much would have been out of real estate early on had that been the thing. Now that I can afford it, I want it there. Right? But early on, absolutely not. You couldn't. And I still think I think our annual re-up is like $500 or $600 after you pay for your Supra and all your stuff. But there's still a huge culling every January too, as those first quarter dues come in. You can go look up agents' numbers and be like, that person did not renew. Right? They're just gone. So it's always interesting. But then there's more coming in. Our market's, it's fun to sell real estate in. So there's always going to be new agents coming in for sure.
So I'm a single agent. When I was up in Minnesota, there were times when I had people working for me. And I think at most I only had one agent that I was working with, but it was more of a, I guess that person was under me, but we were working together. But it was not a successful team. It was really a single agent who just buddied up with someone else who needed some help. And we just kind of, fumbled through trying to pretend we're a team. Well, now I've got things built. But again, I go back to my story about how I thought I had marketing figured out down here too, right? So we'll see how successful it is. So here's my question from a guy who's been a successful single agent, but not a successful team guy. But I'm about to build a team here in the next 9 to 12 months. As the team stud, what would you tell me are the top 3 things I should know before getting into this?
So your admin is going to be way harder to employ and train than you ever believed. And the reason is because what they need to do, you don't know how to do, otherwise you wouldn't need them, right? So like training up the admin part, that first hire, hopefully that person who becomes your director of ops, that part was very difficult. We now have somebody who has the work ethic, the drive to tackle 125 tasks a day, those types of things. But that was where I failed the most. I think it was 4th admin before we got it right.
Yeah.
4th. That part was really hard. The profitability part, it was staggering when you really look at how, when you start building a team, say you get to a space where you've brought on a Joe Rosen or me, right? Like, and you're bringing on a $15 or $20 million producer in their business. You're not just bringing in $15 to $20 million worth of production in a vacuum. You're bringing on their expenses, right? Yeah. Like probably their bad business practices, all kinds of stuff that I think whether, when you're bringing on a new agent who's not done any production, their cost is relatively low. It's business cards and an email address, right? Like it's when you start bringing on a producer who has office space Those types of things factor into your P&L really quickly. So that profitability aspect, I think, is something that you're always tweaking and changing. I'm very fortunate to partner with Brian, who really has a stranglehold on our finances.
Yeah.
He's very aggressive at cutting those things, right? And then the reality, when it ties into profitability, you have to have a commission and a compensation structure that is appealing. Because here's, I think, what I found out. It's easy to convince agents to join a team who don't know anything, right? New agents are going to talk to you about splits and leads.
Yep.
Experienced agents are going to talk to you about leverage and profitability or their time back, whatever it is they're trying to gain, but it's going to be much more specific, I think.
Yep.
So you have to have value props for both. And you have to understand that, look, there's a reason 87% of the people in this industry flunk out. And very candidly, there's about 1 out of every 10 who are going to be worth a damn. And you have to be okay with that, because me as a people pleaser, that was the hardest thing for me to stomach, was when people either left or I couldn't train them up. I took that really, really hard.
Yeah.
Right. And the reality is what I wasn't doing correctly was I wasn't hiring people who were right for me either. To tie it all the way back to the beginning, that's what the video content and the live training events. Brian and I are doing a live training event tomorrow from 9 to 11:30 or something. We do those every other week because people know who they're partnering with.
Yep.
We now have 15 agents on the team, who essentially all are a part of our culture, right? Like I mean, very honestly, I would wear this shirt on a listing appointment. Completely fine. I don't have any problem doing that. And I'm not saying everybody should do that, but it works with my style, right? So we now have a team of people who have bought into how we're doing stuff, the taco videos, all the silly crap that we do.
Yeah.
And so now all of these things added together have really allowed Brian and I to bring the right people into our world. Whereas before I was just bringing on anybody because I was trying to grow, but those are the three things, man, the profitability, the agent attraction, and the admin. Those were the three things that I think once we started to figure out, I was like, damn, I was doing that super wrong. What
do you do with that admin? Because I can see that being an issue. I just, like, right now I've got my wife doing my admin, and she'd always been a front desk girl, right? A traditional brokerage front desk girl. So you're taking phone calls, but you're passing them all to agents. You're taking listings in. All you're doing is inputting them. There's really not a lot of, there aren't choices to be made. It's just task, finish the task. Well, now I'm telling her, okay, I got to go. I've got a listing appointment and then 2 showings, but I need you to call this person. You need to talk about this purchase agreement. Do not talk about this, and make sure your tone is really subtle right here, because you don't want to mention this, because if you do, they might think about that, and you don't want them to think about that. And she's like, whoa, I can't do all this. And I'm thinking, I have not trained you properly to do this. And I have committed. We've committed 2 full 1-hour sessions for training every week, and we've been doing it, but it takes so much training.
There's a nimbleness and a nuance that nobody will ever be able to replicate conversationally, right? Like there's that. I will tell you, and I don't know what Florida is, and whoever's tuning in, I know every state is different. I will tell you right now, the people who make the best admins are former escrow officers of title companies.
Interesting.
They're already so familiar with the process. They know what the lender's supposed to be doing. They understand the title part of it. They know what the agent's supposed to be doing. In Texas, if the title person is really the hub of the transaction that everybody else is tethered to. Everybody has their own thing to do, but really the title company has their hands on every bit of it. As the listing agent, now our team isn't like this, but the listing agent may not have a lot to do with the lending side, right? But title does.
Yeah.
So like our director of ops now, who essentially oversees 20 pendings at a time and 2 other administrative staff, is a former escrow agent. Right. And because the time management they need to do that job, all of those things, I think it transitions really well to what I believe our team needed.
I love that, man. I'm just thinking, man, my wheels are spinning. Right after this, I'm going to watch this last 10 minutes and I'm going to take notes. I appreciate that, buddy.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, that was quick. That was quick.
It did go fast.
Yeah. I appreciate you.
We cover everything. I saw Shanta Gray. She commented like, "How to attract agents?" Those live events. I'm telling you, like, get on with a title company. Come up with something that's called massive lead generation or converting people with video. You know what a video class is? It's a way to tell people how to stay in contact with their sphere, right? You do those with a title company every couple of weeks. You put some slides together, have the title company print it up. One, the presentation will become replicatable, right? You just do it every couple of weeks, or you have a series. Brian and I do a series of 3 events, and then we take it off. So we actually do it once a quarter, 1, 2, 3, then 2 week off, and then back on. Those client or those agent attraction events they're huge when you're trying to grow a team, right? Because you're essentially they're all designed to tell an agent, look, there's really no way to do this on your own. Not all of it, right? And we all have to admit, as real estate agents, we cannot do all of it on our own.
Yeah.
So it's, hey, here's the path to build this, or which will cost you 50 to 60% of your profits at the end of the day, because that's just the way it is.
It's costing you either way.
You can leave all the risk on the table. You can come over to this tower of systems that Brian and I have built, and you can climb that tower to any level of success that you choose to, without the fear of P&L or whatever else. And you get to pick Brian and I's brain, because we're in the other room, and we'll show you how to keep deals together, which is really the value of partnering with anybody. Show me how to keep my deals together so I get paid.
It's true.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Show me how to decipher an inspection report. Show me how to write a winning offer in a multiple offer situation. Show me what bad business looks like. That's the nuance that I can never put a dollar amount to. That when somebody's like, well, what do I get for my splits? I don't know, man. Consistently making 120 grand a year? Is that like, what do you want me to
baby? Yeah.
Yeah. What do you want me to tell you? So
yeah. That's amazing, man. I love it. Well, when I get down that team road, I've got a 9-month goal for team building. I'm going to definitely talk to you a little bit more, man. I appreciate it. I appreciate all the communication that you've given me through Instagram, Facebook, everything else. You've been a great friend. I remember talking to you in Washington State before I even came down here. You didn't even know who the hell I was. And
I was on the Joe Rosen countdown, man. I was excited for you to Port St. Lucie as you were.
Yeah, baby.
I was watching that countdown for like 3 months, I feel like.
It's a fun journey, man. It's been pretty cool.
It's been pretty cool, man. I'm happy to know you. And like I said, shockingly, and this is what I love about this kind of stuff, is I feel like I know you and I've never been in the same room. And I know we get to do that here pretty soon. So I'm excited, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Well, thank you. Hey, I do want to go over, if you guys want to watch Matt's podcast. Yeah. Tore Academy, TORE academy.com/podcast. And there's going to be 3 options when you go there, right? There's watch now, listen on iTunes, and listen on Spotify. So you can go check them out. However it is that makes you happy.
Depends on whether you want to see our faces or not.
Yeah, there you go. And then you've got on Facebook, it's just, what is it, Matt Kelderman? Or what's your business page?
Matt Kelderman, yeah, everything's pretty much Matt Kelderman. If you just put my name in, you'll find me on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. I think if you're kind of wondering how maybe you could tackle your Facebook, friend request me on Facebook. I'm honestly going to friend request me. Most of my stuff's public, and you can just see kind of how I navigate social media and kind of what I do. I think if you pay attention, it's pretty easy to pick up on. It's not profound. It's just very intentional.
All right, my man. Well, I appreciate it. And once I get all of his details, I'll put all that stuff down in the comments so you can go check them out a little bit easier. I appreciate it, bud.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on, buddy. I appreciate you.
All right. Adios.
Later.